What's going on, guys? So today we're taking a little dive into the different methods of administration when it comes to performance enhancing drugs. Now, the two particular ones I'm talking about are of course intramuscular and subcutaneous, referred to as sub-C, not sub-Q. That drives me insane. I know it sounds like a Q, but it's spelled with a C. Just get it right, please. In particular, what we're going to be referencing is a study which was the Pharmacokinetics and Acceptability of subcutaneous injections of testosterone Undecanoate. This study was a randomized study that consisted of 20 people. 11 were hypergonadal men and 9 were transgender men. They were using 1,000 milligrams of testosterone Undecanoate, which was suspended in 4 ml of carrier oil. Now, the two methods obviously of administration were intramuscular and subcutaneous, and the whole point of diving into this study is to kind of settle the debate of which one is better. You know, is there a difference between using intramuscular or subcutaneous, and if so, what one should I be doing? And it turns out what they found within the study was that anabolic and androgenic steroids did not need to be administered intramuscularly, and sub-C is tolerated extremely well with no real difference or change in the pharmacokinetics of the drug itself. There was no change to the properties of the testosterone that was used, which leads me on to what method should you choose. Okay, now, as there is no difference in the pharmacokinetics of the drug when administered in either or way, well, with the minor difference, it's negligible, right? It's not enough for us to say, well, if you do everything sub-C now because it's 0.0001% better, it's so negligible that the better option here is to say, right, what is more feasible here? One of the things they looked at outside of just the pharmacokinetics, so i.e., the DHT and estrogen levels changed, the testosterone serum levels, the testosterone, estrogen, and DHT, respectively. They also looked at pain. Now, because obviously it's something to be considered. And what they found was that, in a general sense, so it's 4 ml fluid in a subcutaneous layer was not painful immediately, but over the course of 24 hours, the subjects that were, obviously it was randomized, they didn't know what they was getting, that had the subcutaneous injections, said that within a 24-hour window they found or experienced some pain. Okay, which the guys with the intramuscular did not. Obviously, they all got rotated around and switched, so they had to try intramuscular and sub-C. And in the results, they found that 11 preferred intramuscular, 6 preferred subcutaneous, and there were 3 that had no preference. So what we can say here is, on the front of looking at the pain aspect, pinning the quads, pinning the delts, pinning any muscle, right, it doesn't feel comfortable. When the needle passes through into the muscle layers and into deep tissue, it's a very foreign feeling, right? And having the oil suspended or encapsulated in that area, the body sees it as a foreign object. Obviously, you get a little bit of minor inflammation, potentially some swelling. It's not, it's not comfortable. It's not like it's a fun thing, guys. The one thing that most bodybuilders will tell you is that the part of the sport that they don't like is pinning. So the conversation to be had, right, as there is no difference really, no notable performance difference or benefit to picking either one, is how can we limit the negative effects of pinning, right? And in particular, we've got to think about scar tissue. So pinning intramuscular, you're going to be left with scar tissue build-up over time. So rotation of pinning sites is extremely important. Another way we can avoid intramuscular scar tissue, so when you're peeled you can see the little lumps and bumps in the definition, is to use subcutaneous injections. And my recommendation here, right, because no one in their right mind is going to be putting 4 ml like they did in the study in their subcutaneous layer. Okay, at maximum I will work up to maybe 0.75 is probably where I'm I'm comfortable. It's okay, I can put up with that, which isn't a lot of fluid in the ground. Well, when people start doing subcutaneous injections, it seems like a lot of fluid if they put that much in, but realistically, if you're microdosing, you're only going to be putting in maybe 0.2, 0.5 ml fluid. When you get up to these bigger cycles and you're starting to use extremely high dosages of different derivatives, DHT derivatives, some 19 North thrown in the mix, there's a possibility with these bigger stack designs that you're going to be having to, you know, inject maybe a mil per day of different anabolics. At that point, you know, you could still do it all subcutaneous. I mean, the study was doing 4 mil in the subcutaneous layer. So it could potentially be done. My suggestion is to rotate intramuscular, subcutaneous, and as many different sites as possible, right? So intramuscular, rear delts, both heads of the tricep, both heads of the biceps, chest, the top part of the quad, the ventral glute, that little bit on the hip. I'd rotate as many different muscles as possible to limit scar tissue, but I would also throw in the mix, you know, some subcutaneous pinning of maybe even if it's just one of your compounds. So let's say you do all your testosterone via subcutaneous, and any other derivatives or any extras in the stack design you pin intramuscular. Just rotate as much as possible. That's my recommendation of, you know, what to do when it comes to the whole intramuscular versus subcutaneous debate. But yeah, just to clarify, in the study they literally found, you know, a very, very marginal difference in the serum levels of estrogen and DHT, so the conversion from testosterone into DHT and estrogen respectively, over the time span. I believe it was like in a couple of weeks there was a slight variation in the levels, and subcutaneous being a little bit more slower releasing in layman's terms, basically. So I guess you could take it on the front that if you wanted to be 0.00001% better, that maybe subcutaneous could potentially be a better option, especially if you're only using things like TRT. If you're using like some form of HRT method, which is why you're using your testosterone, then that could potentially be a better stable release and conversion of testosterone into estrogen and DHT. So you don't have particularly such big spikes. But when it comes to anabolic and androgenetic steroid stack designs within, you know, bodybuilders, and we're looking at, you know, what's the most feasible thing, you know, I would suggest rotation of intramuscular, subcutaneous, and as many different sites as possible and you can tolerate. But there you go, guys. That kind of answers the debate between intramuscular and subcutaneous. Essentially, it's personal preference. I've got friends and clients as well that prefer to only pin intramuscular. I've also got friends and clients that will do as much subcutaneous as they can before they pin. You know, a lot of my females that use enhancements prefer subcutaneous, and obviously using a hell of a lot of a fraction of the cycles and stat designs that my men use, we often see that the subcutaneous approach is actually more feasible, being such small amounts of fluid. So yes, guys, there you have it. That is the overview of intramuscular versus sub-C and that debate that goes on between bodybuilders and people, old school people and new school bodybuilders, day in, day out. And obviously, hopefully that answers a few of the questions I've had in my DMs and on the comment section on my YouTube channel. And yeah, we will be back next week. We'll see another video. Next week, I will be doing a day in the life, but more, okay, you know, some short little snippets of the day, because we all know what I eat roughly. It hasn't changed much, it's just more of it. But more some training footage, get some good training footage of the AM PM split. So you can see how I structure my day, how I go about it. And then the big news that I've got from GWP. So stay tuned and look out for that next video, guys. Peace.